si vous voulez parler français, un petit peu, pour tout le long, ça c'est votre choix. Moi je vais essayer de faire un peu de français ici et là, mais bien sûr, vu que tout le monde, je dirais que moins que la moitié du monde comprend le français, je vais probablement faire en anglais. Just because. Je ne veux pas crier au mur. I don't want to yell at the wall. Ça c'est, je suis vraiment, je veux vous remercier. I want to thank y'all for being here parce que c'est eux les stars d'aujourd'hui. I really like the mix that we have here. Like I said, my name is Maggie Perkins. Je travaille pour le Codofil. Je suis responsable du développement communautaire. I'm the community development specialist at Codofil. I just started a few months ago. But we kind of picked this panel, me and Jennifer talked about it, and I think it has a nice variety to it. So, on va commencer ici, ça c'est Mr. Sam Craft. This is Sam Craft, de la Nouvelle-Orléans, de la ville. He is in the group Sweet Crew, who does indie pop franco-louisianais. They just had an album come out, what, last year?
Oui.
Yeah. Créature, and it's a mixture of French and English. Some songs are all in French, some songs are, the chorus is in French, and the verses are in English. Some songs, one line is in French, and then the next line is in English, and then the next two lines are in French, and the next line is in English. It's in Louisiana French specifically. It's not in France French or Canada French, it's in le français louisianais. Chris Stafford is a founding member and current member of Fofele. You were in immersion as a child, your parents put you in immersion, and then you also developed a pretty keen interest in music as a child too, and the two kind of merged together. And you also have Staffland Studios, so you're also recording music locally, which is pretty cool, and I'm interested in that aspect of it too. Yeah. Ashley Hayes-Steele was also a member of Fofele, and now she's a member of Bonsoir Catin, who also just came out with an album last year.
Yes.
Aurore, tout en français, tout original? They're all original songs? Presque? Okay. And I don't even know, I was wondering, how would you describe Bonsoir Catin's like genre? I was trying to think of this the other day, because I was like, okay, so like Lost Bayou Ramblers, they went one direction, they're like kind of psychedelic, punk, rock, Cajun songs. And then like, I know some people, I've heard people call Fofele a little Americana, as their Americana bilingue. I don't even know what to say for Bonsoir Catin.
I think on the last record we were joking that it was progressive Cajun arena rock.
Progressive Cajun rock. I like it. Do we need mics or anything like that? Are we good? Can everybody
I think you need a mic.
Yeah? Do we have a mic at all? No?
Arena rock.
Oh, that's the mic? Oh, okay.
It's not enough?
Maybe just move it closer. Would it help if we moved it closer? Don't touch it? Okay.
Maybe a recording device. Oh,
Okay.
that's a bug.
They're spying on us. And then we have Steve Riley. Obviously, the Playboys are celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. And I'm really interested in asking you about the arcs of a 30-year career, because that to me, I mean, that's amazing that y'all are just as pertinent and just as active today. You're still coming out with new songs, new albums. Jamais lâché, là. And then Mr. Jimmy Louis Marie, who is a music teacher at Myrtle Place, excuse me.
And Prairie.
And Prairie? Okay, both, okay. Two immersion schools. And I guess let's go ahead, I just want to I'll start with Mr. Jimmy, because I would like to ask him how he got here, because he's the only immersion music teacher that we have, as far as I know. There aren't any other immersion music teachers in Lafayette Parish. So how did you come into a job that otherwise does not exist?
At the beginning, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Jimmy Louis Marie. I come from Martinique. Do you know where is Martinique? Small island in the Caribbean Sea. And after a few years in France in musicology studies, I followed my wife for her first job in Louisiana. And when she applied for this job, I applied also. I said, okay, I'm a music teacher in middle school in France, and if you need my help. So they said yes, and they accepted my proposition to be the first music teacher in elementary school in French immersion. So I'm very, very honored and proud to be in part of this huge project. And,
so my première grande question pour tout le monde, my first big question is kind of like la poule ou l'œuf. So you're all involved in French music in Louisiana. what was the big interest first? Was it music or was it French? Like, were you interested in French and that got you interested in French music? Or were you interested in traditional music and you're like, oh, I need to learn French or I need to practice French? Which one came first? So, anybody? Keep it body.
Je dois commencer.
Ouais.
I guess I was first baptized as a musician, and then later on gained an interest in French. I think when I was young, I was too young to understand or care. Growing up in New Orleans, it was something that we went and shopped at Bromart. Oh, EAUX, and having that just very much in the background. And I had to go to Crawford's Boyle in West Wego to hear French from my mom's aunts and uncles. So it was music first for me.
Chris?
They're I guess kind of both at the same time, but I started learning French very young because I started French immersion class in kindergarten. So, I remember always being interested and fascinated by music, like pretty much my entire life. But I think the fact that I was already learning French so young kind of like helped draw me into learning Cajun music and wanting to play it and sing in French and stuff like that, because I already kind of knew enough French to do
Understand.
it whenever I was starting very young,
Ashley?
I have to agree with Chris. I think,
same thing.
yeah, French immersion opened up a lot of opportunities for us, I guess, to be exposed to the music. So, I was a horrible musician. I could speak French really well, but there was a lot of catching up to do music-wise, but I was really interested in it. And, so yeah, I think the French opened the door for me and also pushed me to get more into the music.
French music.
Is that inseparable in Mamu?
Pretty much. That was the only music I knew as a child. That and Flip Wilson. A lot more Cajun music. I would hear it on the radio, Fred's Lounge broadcast. I played my triangle along to the broadcast as a child. My grandfather would teach me how to sing Cajun songs. Mark Sabo and Dennis McGee would play at house parties at my grandparents' home in Eunice. Cyprian Landreneau and Isa Fontenot would play at parties at my grandparents' house in Monmouth.
Live together. This is the process for me, because I teach in music and also I teach French. So it's I think really we can think about for the future. We can use French to teach music, and we can use music to teach French. And this is the process for me today. And I really think we should mix this process to have something great for the future.
Yeah. A lot of people learn French via music, or they start learning it via song lyrics, and that's Barry was talking about that the other week about how important it is that groups put the song lyrics in the packet so that people who are interested, who maybe need that first step, can kind of, oh, like, look, I can kind of follow what he's saying, and look, that has the English below it and things like that. My second question is for everybody, particularly for Chris and Ashley, because you started so young, and you started playing just, Balfour Brothers songs and, traditional songs, I imagine. So was there like a point where you said, hey, I can write this stuff? Like, I don't just have to play other songs. I could write my own songs. Or did a song come and that's how you started? You just thought of a song itself. It wasn't the idea of, I'm going to start writing. It was just this song in my head that's coming out. Like, how did the transition go from when you were just playing songs that were traditional, that you were taught, that somebody else wrote a long time ago, and then the idea that now you both write your own songs in French that have maybe traditional aspects to it, but that are original songs? About that transition, I guess, into writing.
Well, I think a lot of the first music I ever wrote was mainly kind of like instrumental music, like instrumental songs, a lot of like, I guess stuff that was kind of like in the vein or modeled after kind of the old like twin fiddle reels and stuff like that. I mean, honestly, I guess being so young, it's like you don't really have like that much expression inside of you yet, you know? And I think when I got a little bit older and maybe a little bit more confident in my like French abilities, took a lot more kind of grammar courses, and I felt like I knew, it's like, okay, this is good, this is worth saying, I'm saying it correctly, everything's, you know, correct. I started writing more lyrics, I guess, at that point. And kind of, I guess it kind of was coinciding with like whenever Fofole was making albums. I guess it's like we felt like we wanted to include originals. I mean, Steve produced our first 3 records, and you always kind of encouraged that with us too, to like write stuff and do music that wasn't maybe necessarily like in the traditional repertoire, but do things that were new to kind of help advance the repertoire, you know?
Ashley, was it more or less the same for you, or?
I remember my dad took me to a record store once and he said, you have to see this girl. She plays Cajun music and she writes her own songs. And that was Christy Gillard, and he like bought me her 2 records, and I went home and I was like, whoa, okay, stop, I can do this. Because to me at the time it was like, you know, we were playing Cajun music, like Chris said, we were playing a lot of staples, and you know, Steve started pushing us to write and everything like that. But I think at the time, I didn't think that writing was an option. I almost felt like, you know, these songs are sacred, and we need to play these songs exactly like these traditional recordings and keep them as pristine as possible. And I think when I realized, like, oh, it's okay, we can write new Cajun songs, and that's when I started writing. So.
And I imagine that, did you go through a similar thing in the early years of your career, and that's why you kind of pushed younger bands, you know, the generation after you pushed them to kind of go ahead with that same idea, or?
I did. I mean, our first 2 records were, you know, mostly us, our interpretations of older songs and our heroes. And, you know, on the 3rd record, we had maybe 1 or 2 originals. And then we started writing more and more.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because Chris was talking about how you produced some of Fofole's early records, and I believe Zachary Richard produced one of y'all's first records, right? So it's kind of an interesting mentorship is I think kind of a big deal. And we were talking about this last week where, I can't remember, I think it was Zach Fuseli was talking about how it was maybe it was Milton Vanacore or somebody who said, come play with me, come play with me. And I sort of love that music can do that, particularly because it doesn't always have to have lyrics at all. So maybe this kid doesn't even speak French yet, but this older fiddler is going to say, hey, come play with me. And they start doing that together, and then it builds relationships, and they can work towards other things, you know, writing songs, or there's not a big gap in the tradition, I find, in music, because there's been so many successive waves of people kind of taking the torch. Sam, in general, like I was saying before, most groups in your generation start with something kind of traditional, and then they evolve their sound. They start playing, like I said, Balfour Brothers songs or something like that, and then they evolve their sound to be their own kind of personality, right? Whether it's progressive arena rock or, you know, whatever. You guys just were like, we're just going straight into the indie pop, y'all, but we're gonna do it in French.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that decision or how that happened, or?
Yeah, let's see. So, the members of Sweet Crew, les membres du Sweet Crew, si je peux continuer en français,
Oui, vas-y.
on était dans des autres groupes, entre la Nouvelle-Orléans, we were in other groups around New Orleans, et on a décidé de reformer, c'était un objectif de mettre le français sur le milieu de la scène. Mais les origines de ça, c'est un peu compliqué parce que moi et Alexis Moisseau, la chanteuse dans le groupe Sweet Crew, on est de racines françaises, on était des élevés devant le français, mais on ne parlait pas français. C'était quelque chose, on manquait dans la vie. Il y avait un trou dans notre âme on voulait remplir avec le français, mais le véhicule serait la musique. Like a lot of people, we're exposed to French via music, you know, like you were talking about before. So it was, it was our choice that we wanted to create a whole new band where that was like the feature. It was a decision that we made. It wasn't something that came up organically at all. We manufactured it.
And was it an awkward decision in New Orleans, which doesn't have quite the same atmosphere as, say, Lafayette? I mean, there's no Festival Acadien Creole in New Orleans. There are some festivals, but it's not, you don't see as many grandparents. I know your grandparents are actually from Acadiana, right? They're from
My mom's family is from the Opelousas area. So.
But was there any sort of reticence or like, well, how are we going to do this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, le choix était évident. C'était parce que il y avait un manque de salle à la Nouvelle-Orléans. Ça n'existait pas. C'était pour nous autres, c'était évident. Il faut faire ça. Parce que nous autres, on a eu des bands qui jouaient de musique indie rock ou whatever. Et ça c'est assez dur pour faire à la Nouvelle-Orléans. Parce que si t'es pas un brass band, si tu joues pas la musique funk ou blues, quelque chose comme ça, ou du jazz, c'est dur à exister, c'est dur à jouer tous ces festivals, tout ça. Donc, on avait ces bands en français, on a ces bands en anglais. On jouait quelle qualité de rock progressif, quelque chose comme ça. Notre propre musique, mais sans un élément culturel dans la musique, parce que si soit la Nouvelle-Orléans, Bâton de Lafayette, tout partout dans la Louisiane, un élément culturel, c'est super important. Il faut avoir un objectif supérieur dans la musique, soit pour célébrer un moment, danser, c'est musique il y a la musique dans les célébrations des fêtes, des noces et tout ça. Mais pour nous autres, c'était important d'avoir parce que avant ça, c'était juste pour nous autres avant Sweet Crew, la musique qu'on faisait, c'était quoi? C'était quelque chose de it was self-indulgent, you know. Mais pour avoir une méthode, une voie pour puiser dans la culture, notre culture. Ça, c'était l'objectif. It was a very conscious decision that we made. And we didn't bring it up. It was something that we didn't start doing because we were playing traditional music at all. I grew up playing traditional jazz, you know, and that almost never veered into French. So growing up in New Orleans, it was not rejected though. It was the only thing like it. And so there was no sort of way. There was an argument against what we had been doing, which was self-indulgent rock music with violin. So I guess like electric light orchestra playing 3.5-minute rock songs that, very pretentious young man music.
I have to disclose that actually I went to high school in New Orleans with Sam and I totally have that album of that.
Okay, well.
Of the indulgent. I loved it in high school. So.
But yeah, so I'm speaking too long, but basically we knew that that had its time in our lives, but that if we wanted to create something with posterity, it was necessary to include a cultural element and really celebrate what makes us unique. So that's something that we wanted to do very consciously.
Cool. We're talking about choice. There's also kind of an aspect of not choice, right? So immersion students do not choose immersion. Their parents choose immersion for them. Et j'aimerais te demander, Jimmy, est-ce que le cours de musique, je me demande si le cours de musique, ça a un effet sur leur expérience de l'école, parce que la musique, c'est pas les maths, it's not like a required course, it's not like a regular, reading, writing, arithmetic kind of class. It's an art, so it's like exposing them to art in French. I know Barry always says you have to give them something to do in French. You can't just say the French language and then they don't know how to actually do anything in it. They just know that it's a little language they keep in the corner in their pocket and they can take it out to impress people if they want. You have to give them something to do in French. I would wonder if you could talk about that, how the kids react to having something to do in French and having, you know, all of a sudden they're singing songs that they understand, and not necessarily everyone around them does, but they do. They understand the words.
The first thing, it's my own experience. In Martinique, my music teacher in school was absolutely awful. And not funny, and like this, and for me it was very difficult to learn something in music. And in my family, I was not permitted to play music. And when I decided to leave my family for France to make my studies in music, I realized how it was very important to be yourself. And in the music class, for me, it's a fun time, something fun. 30 minutes, and during these 30 minutes, you need to warm your body, warm the voice, and learn something. It's super short, but during these 30 minutes, you need to give information. And this information is French, learn French, words everywhere, and moving, and dancing, and learning French. At the end, you are leaving with a smile. This is how the process with them. And in 5th grade, everybody can sing in French, and happy to sing in French, and would like to involve in the French project. This is my process.
Also still on the subject of the second question there was, how do they feel like about the fact that they understand the lyrics, but maybe their parents or their other friends at school who are not in immersion or whatever wouldn't understand what they're singing? And that's a question I'm going to ask all of you, particularly about writing in French. I mean, how do you feel about, I was going to ask you about Danser sans comprendre in a second, which I know you collaborated with Barry on, and I love that song. But starting with...
Toutes les chansons qu'on apprend avec les enfants, on leur donne des explications. Il faut qu'ils soient capables de comprendre chaque mot pour pouvoir les... Quand tu comprends un mot, tu peux mieux l'exprimer. Tu peux mieux l'exprimer dans la chanson, tu peux mieux l'exprimer dans ton geste aussi. Et puis ils peuvent mieux l'expliquer aux parents aussi. Et it's very important to understand what you...
It's not, it doesn't just stop there. They can explain it, and then the parents will know what those words mean, and then they can explain it. So yes, Danser sans comprendre. I would love to know the reaction to that song, or if there was a reaction that you felt to that song. Which, I don't know if everyone knows the song Danser sans comprendre.
Sing the first verse.
On the spot. You're just
Comment ça se fait, après chanter, bébé, in a language you don't understand? Après danser, t'amuser, while my words just echo across the land. What's at stake? What did it take? C'est pas assez, danser sans comprendre.
So,
That's I wrote that at the festival like an egg round.
oh yeah? Oh,
I was having a big time. Yay.
yeah. So, in my mind, like I'm imagining if I didn't speak French the first time that I heard that song, and I'm out there dancing, and I'd be like, whoa, wait, I feel like I'm missing something here. Like this, like, wait, I can understand enough of the lyrics, the ones that are in English, to know that I'm missing something in the other lyrics. So was that the reaction of some people, or did they just keep dancing and we should all cry, or what?
I have no idea. I do know that there's a lot of young people out there who understand one song, understand French, and every year, to me, it just seems like the younger generation is more and more into our music. So maybe the challenge is
of doing either music or some sort of work for French, I think it could also be considered that, as opposed to just, I'm sort of treating it like it's a call for people to learn French, but it's also, like any song, it's expressing the person who's singing and the person who wrote its feelings as well. But yeah, I agree. I think I get more and more hopeful every time I meet more and more young people who they just crawl out of the woodwork sometimes. Like, whoa, like, who's this person? And they're really into it, and they're ready to go to work, and they're ready to write things, and they're ready to learn.
Well, what you just said though, sometimes people are expressing about somebody else's viewpoint too. It's not always their viewpoint, it's somebody else's or somebody else's story.
It's true. I guess in general, for everybody, how do you feel about writing in French? Is there any anxiety or frustration around it, or was there in the beginning and there isn't anymore, or was there not in the beginning and there is now as time goes on, about the idea that not everybody is going to necessarily be listening to the lyrics, or even if they're listening, maybe not understand? Or is that totally unfounded and I'm projecting my own fears onto you?
I find it, in a somewhat selfish way, I'm more comfortable writing in French because I know that not everyone will understand. And I don't mean that in a lazy way, more of a, it's more like an emotional cloak, maybe. Like I'm not as afraid to write something with more truth in it in French, as opposed to if I was singing it in English. It's like that cloak is gone, and it's scary to me, you know. So I think writing in French is a safe place for me. That much more.
Anybody else on that question?
I kind of agree with that. I mean, we're writing a lot right now. And there's a song I'm writing with Juan Nunez. And the song, he wrote most of the lyrics. Let me see if I can find it. And he wrote most of the lyrics. And I don't want to sing these lyrics in English. I would maybe sing them in French, but I've always lived my life on my own terms. The devil may care about the lessons I've learned. I've lost count of the bridges I've crossed and burned. I don't know if I want to sing that. I don't know if I want people to know how bad I am. So, but I'd be happy to do it in French. I'll be bad in French.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Lord, I need somebody bad in French.
Moi, j'ai commencé la musique en Martinique and my first language is Creole. I still speak Creole with my parents and my family in Martinique, and we speak in Creole. And I created a Latin jazz band in France, and everything was in Creole. And I used to write in Creole for Martinique. So it's sometimes we use the language we are more comfortable to write something. And if I need to write something in English today, probably everybody will leave and say, okay, stop. But when you use the language you are more comfortable, you can express more something. It's better for us.
Yeah, I agree about it being an emotional cloak. That's a beautiful way to put it. But also, I think that writing in French is like, I think all of us would agree that there's another state of mind that you enter when you change languages. You perceive everything in a slightly different way. And I think it's the same way, like, je vais essayer de tourner en français. Pour les yogis dans la pièce, je suis pas yogi, mais je sais que quand on dit les mantras, on prie des mantras en sanskrit, parce que ces mots sont censés être dotés des vibrations, de magie, du fond des âges, right? Et même avec avant Vatican II, l'Église catholique, ils m'ont prié en latin, parce que pas juste pour la tradition de ces mots-là, mais aussi parce que C'est une connexion, on est lié. Quand on prie en latin, soi-disant, on est connecté, on est lié avec nos ancêtres. C'est la même chose avec chanter. Pour nos auteurs, compositeurs, interprètes, vous chantez en français, vous utilisez le français, c'est faire une connexion avec les ancêtres. C'est faire une connexion, pas juste avec les ancêtres, mais c'est puiser dedans notre niveau de conscience. Et pour nous autres, c'est quelque chose qu'on partage. So I think that using French is a way to tap into another level of consciousness with the past, with each other. And it's the same thing we find in yoga when people meditate and they use mantras in Sanskrit or pray in Latin or whatever it is.
That's kind of what we were talking about with performance language, right? I mean, the way, like you said, yoga, Sanskrit for a bar mitzvah, ancient Hebrew, it's like you can't do it in English, you just can't. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't have the power, it doesn't connect in the same way.
Les paroles ont une super puissance en français.
And I mean, we'll hear in a second about some of these César Vincent songs that date from the Middle Ages. So when we say it has a history, like a long history. And when I hear things like Arnaud Barthélémy, when I heard her version of À la Claire Fontaine, which I've heard in France, I've heard in Canada, it must be so old that before all these people left France to go to all the former French colonies, it was already in existence. Because there's different versions, but it's clearly the same song in all these different parts of the world. And that's such a weird thought and feeling to be like, whoa, this is old. Like, this is part of something that has existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's strange to have that encapsulated in something as simple and small as a song. And it's mostly a song, people sing it to children a lot. I like that Fontaine. I mean, it's kind of like almost a nursery rhyme song type of thing, Cantine. But yeah, I do, like Barry was saying earlier, we talked a lot about the idea of French as a performance language, and that you kind of have to do it in French just because you have to do it in French. You can't explain it, you just have to. Yeah.
Well, linguists refer to a concept of an affective channel. And it's coming from a different affective particles of affect in the sense of affection. It's coming from a different. As several people at the table have said, it's coming from actually a different perception, a different consciousness, as Sam said. And it's going through that channel, and sometimes we can express things that way that sound foreign or weird in another way.
To kind of go in the opposite direction, we're talking about how deep the roots go and how far past how far in the past it goes, but I know that as artists, obviously you're also trying to express yourself and you're trying to, or other people's thoughts, obviously, but you're trying to create something new too. You don't want to sing the exact same song over and over and over again, right? You want new songs and new approaches and new twists on things. So is there a way that you feel like you can balance those two things, or is it just, it sort of comes out? Or I imagine that probably, at least one person at this table, I've seen other musicians get told this, been told, that's not even our music anymore. What are you doing? That's not, that's not how you do it. That's not the tradition. You've left us behind now. You're just doing your own thing. It's self-indulgent, right? Something like that, right? Why are you using my culture to do something self-indulgent, right? So, but at the same time, I mean, we don't want to just sing, we want to keep those old songs, but we don't want to just sing those old songs. We want things that are fresh and that apply to our lives today. And that in any art form, you want to do something new sometimes, right? So is there a balance between those two things? If anyone wants to talk about that, how you balance the two, between keeping the tradition, garder la tradition, et créer quelque chose de nouveau, de fresh. I know it's not the simplest question in the world. Throwing it out there.
I'll answer. I was lucky in this band to have David Greeley with me from the beginning, because he was a great guy, kept me in check, because Lord knows where I would have gone. But he always said it's like a delicate dance, with the audience. You gotta, do a bit of the new stuff, reach, while still using the other hand to grab them and bring them along with you, you know. And it's kind of the approach we've taken, you know, and we've also had to kind of figure out as a band over 30 years what works best, what we do the best. You know, we tried out a lot of things in the studio, in writing and experimentation. And some things work, some things don't. The things that work stay, you know, and so that's kind of the approach we've taken, and I feel like it's worked pretty good. I mean, we have a pretty clear understanding of who we are and our place and where we are, and, you know, after 30 years, you know, it works with us. And so we continue to dance to that. That's all it is. We left some behind, but we grabbed some new ones.
Quand tu es musicien, quand tu fais de la musique, tu as dans ta tête de la musique. Et des fois, tu peux te réveiller à 2 heures du matin avec une musique. So, I have something. Et tu vas l'écrire. Et à chaque fois, tu as de la musique. Donc, le musicien a toujours quelque chose de nouveau à dire. Mais lorsqu'on est défenseur de la culture de la Louisiane, il faut être capable de danser un petit peu sur les deux pieds, être capable d'un côté de préserver une tradition et en même temps d'être le propre musicien qu'on est. Ce qui n'est pas toujours facile. Après, l'astuce, c'est de recréer, de redonner vie, de réarranger. C'est le travail que Barry nous a demandé de faire, de prendre les nouvelles chansons, des anciennes chansons, pardon, et de créer quelque chose de nouveau. Et c'est la magie de l'arrangement.
Et en parlant de ça, est-ce que tu peux parler du disque J'ai une chanson dans mon cœur? I'll let you explain what it is.
C'est un disque qui a été écrit par les élèves d'immersion avec Zachary Richard. Et ils ont écrit des listes de chansons très 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 jolies, interprétées par les enfants, et avec Anora Emerson aussi. Et ce disque montre aussi toute la qualité le potentiel aussi de l'écriture des enfants, de ce qu'ils peuvent produire. Donc la production, J'ai une chanson de mon cœur, c'est une production de Louisiane. Et c'est quelque chose qu'aujourd'hui, qu'on entend dans le monde entier, et qui prouve à quel point ce potentiel-là, il est immense. Et il faut vraiment le soutenir. Voilà. Et dans ce disque-là, il y a toutes sortes de musique. Du rap, du Cajun songs, et des mélodies très calmes aussi. Donc c'est très varié, et la pop aussi. Et voilà, ça montre aussi la richesse et le potentiel de ce qu'on peut faire en musique.
And for anyone who didn't catch the French, it's a disc that was made by immersion students of original songs that they wrote in French. And it's called J'ai une chanson dans mon cœur. I have a song in my heart. And like Mr. Jimmy said, there are some that are kind of lean more towards Cajun music. There are some that are totally not Cajun music, which I love. And I love that I imagine in your class they get exposed to lots of different types of French music all throughout the world, probably, right?
Yes.
And I think once again, as much I listen to Cajun music a lot, right? But I also love listening to French music in other parts of the world, and I think when I was teaching French, I tried to play French music from other parts of the world too, because I think a lot of kids who grow up here, they think French music is only like twin fiddles and an accordion, and so when you play something like Stromae or something, you know, a Belgian, I don't even know how to describe Stromae, he's a superstar, right? And they're like, wait, they can do the same music that we do in English? They have like superstars like that in French? It's like, yeah, you can do everything that you do in English. Tu peux le faire en français. Ça existe en français. Stromae?
Stromae.
Oh yeah, it's a slang for maestro. He's a big dance music person, but he writes dance music like a singer-songwriter, I would say. Like the lyric, you know, a lot of dance music, the lyrics, like, I'm talking about club dance music kind of stuff, the lyrics don't really matter that much. In fact, you can say horrible things in the lyrics, no one will notice because they're too busy dancing. But he writes the lyrics very carefully with a lot of thought into it, and they talk about really deep topics and stuff like that. It's pretty neat. So, merci.
I just say, Doc, in this discussion about the relationship between preservation and creation, one should remember that in an interview, Joe Falcon, who recorded Almas Lafayette, the first commercial recording of Cajun music in 1928, he explained that he made that song up in the Wayne studio. So, you know,
The way it went.
he made it up on the way to the studio. Almas Lafayette. It was a brand new song. So, and Dennis McGee, what Dennis McGee was doing was not what his father did, or his uncle, or his grandfather did, and what Lawrence Walker did, what Nathan Abchar did. Every generation has pushed it forward, and they've always had somebody say, "Well, wait, that's not right," you know. But it takes it forward, and so I think it's important to remember that we're not talking about the thing. We're talking about the process that produces it. That's what needs to be preserved, not the thing, but the process.
I imagine there was even people when accordions came in. What are you doing putting this loud box in my twin fiddle music? Gosh darn it.
Can I add something here? I'm Roger Mason. I knew Dewey Buffett and his brothers very well for over 10 years. Dewey told me once, we have some songs, we never change a note. We never change a word. We respect them note for note. And I was in a studio at Floyd Swallows and Bill Platt, who did the same, another song. They did 3 different takes, and each take, not only the melody was different, the words were different. Each take, the same song. So they were on 2 different tracks, and I was very impressed by that he had a recognition of what was traditional and what he wanted to keep, but he was also pushing within the traditional.
Good to see you, Roger. I didn't recognize you. But it's been a while. It's Dewey. When I met Dewey Bauman, who was my hero, and I wanted to meet him for many years before I finally did. And we sat down and we played music together. And he said, I'm really flattered that you play just like I do. You sing just like I do. He said you could find your own voice. First thing he told me that night. And he also told me, not long after that, music is freedom. Do with music what you want to do. I think he was a traditional musician, but he knew that it's the process, that makes the thing.
Do you find that your students have that reaction, Jimmy, when they get exposed? Like, I wonder, in their first music class, I mean, is there a strong reaction, or does it take a while for them to kind of get used to it and see like, hey, look?
Everything is fun.
Yeah.
The first process for me is everything is fun, should be fun. And for example, we talk about creation and keep the culture in our mind and keep the culture inside the school. My process in school is to every time learning, teaching music, and at the same time keep back the Louisiana culture in the school, in the classroom. And for example, I create a Halloween Cajun song. Nobody did that before. I have someone to write a short story for me in French using Cajun French words, and I create the melody, I create the atmosphere, and I ask the kids to move their hands and to be spooky and like this and scream and make something from the night, and you love that. So in imagination we don't have limits. So I think it's something very interesting to be able to think about the future using what we have today, the culture. We have incredible musicians, and we have the culture also. It's to create. The first thing today is create, and the kids will love that. The little kids.
I have a few more questions, but I do love that people have been throwing questions out there, so I'm going to take a moment to see if there are any that are like waiting to be asked right now. If not, I can keep going, but if anyone has a question they want to throw out there that's on their mind. No? Okay. I'm going to keep going.
Moi, j'ai
Chris.
une question pour, excuse-moi, j'ai une question pour Steve.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure about everybody else's experience here, well, or Sam's, I'm not sure. Chris, I know, is immersion, of course. Jimmy, toujours parler français. And Lauren, I'm not sure either. So maybe this is for Chris and Lauren. But I have watched Steve over the years progress in his French. When he first started singing in French, his understanding was one thing. What he understands in French and his ability to express himself in French, of course, is an entirely different thing today. And I'm just wondering, as you are now, you're writing in French, and how has that changed the process? In other words, you speak a much better French than you spoke 20 years ago. And I think part of that is the fact that you have had practice as a musician. So, and we watch this sort of, relationship between language and music among musicians. We've had kids come out of immersion who, because of their exposure to French, got interested in music. We have musicians who got interested in French. And so that there's this sort of give and take between language education or learning language and learning music. But I'm just wondering how that informs how you write, because if you're writing your own music today, what does that bring in terms of how you learned to speak French and what you have learned over the years?
It all helps, all of the writing, the songs, the speaking, the practice. It's a constant work in progress.
Was there ever like an aha moment when you thought, okay, man, I got this now. I feel
Yeah, there's
different
moments
about
where it comes quickly, and it comes hard, and strong, it's there, and it's like, all right, I got it, but the next time it's cool, it's a grind, it's just like life, it mirrors life, really, in a way. Des fois, c'est facile, mais les autres fois, c'est difficile.
I got a question for Chris about the production side of it, that you have your own studio in near downtown Lafayette, and you produce a lot of albums.
Yeah.
Including, you were part of the C'est Jean Vincent reboot kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about just that aspect of it? I don't even know really what my question is, I guess, but is that, did you just get into it because you like the technical aspects of recording, or do you feel like there's a lack there?
Studio in general, or?
Yeah, having a studio and recording, do you feel like, for example, I know that you also record things that have nothing to do with French and stuff?
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly you do.
Most
So
of it.
is there any different feeling about the stuff that's French and the stuff that's not French, or is it all kind of just the same thing, or is there any aspect? I really know nothing that much about recording in general, or if there's any production aspect that is specific to recording something with Louisiana French in it, or with that cultural aspect.
Yeah, well, I like all different types of music, and I've played a lot of different types of music, and I've been interested in recording since high school. I've had a home studio and would make my own demos, and it was kind of part of songwriting process for me was to make little demos, and I played multiple instruments, so just kind of always done that. And I guess I got more serious about it in my college years, started actually recording other people's recordings, and eventually decided I wanted to do it professionally. So I basically record, kind of whoever calls me, and I'm kind of experienced in a lot of different styles and genres, so I can feel lend my ear and help and creativity to virtually almost anything that comes in, to some degree. But also having the French background, I think, is good for me as a producer, because a lot of times, people can come in and record a song, and it's I have them mic'd up with a condenser mic, and I'm listening through very accurate speakers, and I hear every single syllable and word that they say, and I gotta sometimes stop them and say, that's not right, you gotta do that again, or your pronunciation's off, it's not grammatically correct, you're saying the wrong word. I've annoyed annoyed a ton of people with that. I'm pretty sure that I've had people come record with me and then they left and never came back. Because I mean, well, you know, it's like if you think about it, it's a permanent thing. It's a recording. People are going to hear it forever. And if you're going to sing in French, you should do it correctly. It shouldn't just be, you know, a phonetical representation of what it sounds like to you. You know, it should be.
Well, I also know people who learned songs phonetically, and it was being made fun of that made them go and actually learn French by like the old people who were like, baby, you don't know what you're singing. Like, you gotta go and study that a little bit because you don't make any sense.
So I
And
like
then
to
God.
think that it helped out with that on a few recordings, you know?
Did you have something?
Oui, je voudrais te dire un truc par rapport au studio de Chris. La première chose qu'on ressent lorsqu'on ouvre la porte, la première chose, c'est que dans ce studio, il y a une histoire. Il y a une histoire, il y a, tu sens qu'il y a une énergie qui est très forte tout de suite. C'est parce que tu vois des instruments, tu vois du matériel, mais aussi tu vois des affiches. Et tu comprends qu'il y a beaucoup de gens qui sont passés. Tu comprends qu'il y a, c'est un lieu de rencontre. Et à chaque fois que je suis venu dans le studio de Chris, il y a toujours quelqu'un. Il y a toujours quelqu'un avec qui parler, il y a toujours un francophone, il y a toujours un moment d'échange. C'est plus qu'un studio, c'est un endroit où aussi on rencontre des gens. Et on fait de la musique ensemble. Voilà, et c'est tout de suite ce qu'on ressent. La semaine dernière, il y a un chanteur canadien qui est venu enregistrer et il était absolument ému de voir que son ami est venu enregistrer aussi dans son studio. Donc c'est vraiment un lieu de rencontre, un lieu de passage et de rencontre, et surtout francophone. Voilà, c'est vraiment la petite chose que je voulais dire.
J'aimerais parler du voyage, parce que les musiciens, les musiciens en général, ça fait partie de la vie, voyager. On ne peut pas juste jouer, on peut jouer chez Fred tous les samedis, peut-être, mais il faut aussi partir. Est-ce qu'il y a une différence entre la manière que c'est reçu ailleurs, dans d'autres parties des États-Unis ou dans d'autres parties du monde, et la manière que vous jouez ici? I'm asking about the difference between when they travel and play music and when they play music at home. Même avec la chorale, vous êtes revenu de Terre-Neuve, with the Newfoundland, with the choir.
And I really think the first impression everybody has during this trip, everybody was totally proud. La fierté. À chaque fois, lorsqu'on faisait une performance et qu'on allait sur une petite scène, il y avait toujours de la fierté de montrer et de présenter la culture de la France. Et je pense que lorsqu'on se déplace, qu'on va faire une performance dans un autre pays, on représente quelque chose. On représente quelque chose et à chaque fois, c'est la fierté de montrer qu'il se passe quelque chose en Louisiane. Et de dire à chaque fois, pour tout le monde, qu'est-ce que c'est Louisiane? Ça, c'est la Louisiane. Et je pense que tous les musiciens, lorsqu'ils sont en dehors et au Canada, en Europe, ils sont fiers de montrer ce qu'ils font, qu'est-ce que c'est la Louisiane. Voilà, j'ai des amis qui m'ont envoyé des vidéos dans le sud de la France, en France, et je vois Steve en train de jouer. Et Steve il était très content de jouer, il avait une énergie incroyable. J'ai plein d'amis qui m'envoient des vidéos et tout le monde est content de voir comment ça se passe. Et je pense que c'est la fierté. Et le plaisir de jouer lorsqu'on est musicien, on a toujours plaisir à donner quelque chose à quelqu'un.
Quelqu'un d'autre? Parler du voyage? The joys or not so joys of traveling?
Can't remember any.
No, I love to travel, and you know, it's most of our travels are not in French countries, but when it is, it's really special, you know. So it's a little different, but it's always beautiful. It's always a connection, you know. Jake DeLone recently told me, he said, you know, he said the one thing about your profession, he said, you always win. He said, at the end of the night, you're a winner. Everybody feels good. Everybody's in a good mood. You've won. He said, for me, when I lose, it's bad. You know, and made me realize that's true. You know, I mean, this music brings people together no matter where you are. And everywhere I go, I tell people we come from one of the richest cultures in the world. I explain to them, you know, where we come from, you know, where we started out, where we are now, what Louisiana's about, what our culture's about. I find that people are always intrigued by us. We're an American band singing in our native French. It's pretty unique. It's just an honor to be an ambassador and to bring our music and the message about who we are everywhere we go.
Je connais que vous êtes venu du Canada assez récemment, puis d'après ce que moi j'ai entendu, y'all are like big stuff right now in Canada. Like everywhere y'all in Canada, we're like, oh my god, this is what?
J'en suis pas sûr, mais en écoutant Steve, on a eu le plaisir de jouer la première partie de Playboys au Québec. Et c'était, pour nous autres, c'était comme un plaisir. On était juste des débutants à ce moment. Mais on était capable de voir Steve en parlant de la culture. Il a pris un moment pendant le set de parler de ce que ça faisait sur la scène et l'importance de continuer la culture et de chanter en français. Il a dit un petit peu de la situation linguistique en Louisiane. Et j'ai remarqué, j'ai dit, wow, je peux dire ça sur la scène. Like, you can say that on stage. You can talk about why you're there, why it's important. People care. And that was, you know, enlightening to me. So, yeah, I got to see that on tour in Canada, opening up for Steve Mountain. Steve Bradley Mountain, but look like Steve Mountain. But yeah, that's an experience I had on stage in a francophone place, but not willing to talk about why we were playing French music on stage, or just, I don't know. I think we have a way of slipping in our mission statement on the stage, you know, in just a brief way, in a non-pedantic, non-pedagogical way, just to be like, hey, we're Sweet Fruit, on est Sweet Fruit à l'Évaluation, on va chanter un petit peu anglais, un petit peu français, pour célébrer notre culture, la richesse de notre culture louisianaise. You know, voilà, allons-y. But what I learned from watching Steve and them play was that to take a moment and to bring people into this collection, this collective consciousness, to be like we're calling upon sacred deities, and we're having this is a moment more bigger than you and me, you know. And like I was very much drawn. It might have been the lights, it might have been the boost light, whatever they started up there. But it was a transcendental moment. I was like, yeah, you know, yeah. Au risque de paraître, you know, prétentieux, c'était un moment, c'était vraiment un moment, c'était super. C'était émouvant.
I want to add or follow that. To what extent do you all feel like members of like a collaborative community, both in performance, as you just mentioned, but also in creation? I mean, do you songwriting lyrics could be a very, very individual, personal thing where you hide in a closet and express things that you, as Ashley said, that you wouldn't say in another language. But, I mean, music is, unless you play solo, music is a collaborative thing. So to what extent do you all feel the value of collaboration?
So many people are putting out such great music, it's inspirational and it's inspiring. I mean, yeah, inspirational. It's fine. It just, you hear all the new records coming out, the new songs, and it just makes you want to work that much harder.
Do any of you write with somebody else though, on a regular basis or occasionally?
Yeah, really. Or I don't like to as much.
You're a closet and cloak kind of guy?
Yeah. It's like a very personal experience for me, kind of usually. I mean, I have done a little bit of it, but it's usually some kind of way for me to like, I don't know, express very personal feelings and thoughts. And doing that with someone else maybe might be kind of weird. I don't know.
It may not be all their thoughts.
Probably not.
Or you may not have their thoughts about your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, I have a similar, yeah, I have the same thought as Krista said about it being very personal, but I just forced myself over the years to collaborate. So I just found that it ends up being this thing where even if I'm writing the lyrics, I'm definitely thinking about someone else singing them and what that's going to be like, because that's generally the case in my musical projects. So I'm like, if this person were to sing it, if Alexis with her soaring angelic voice is going to take this on, it better be epic, or it better not be subtle, or it better speak to her experience in some way. And then in our band, we just happen to all kind of pitch in, like somebody will throw in a verse, somebody will have, hey, I have this idea for a chorus, or whatever. So all our songs are very Frankenstein-y in that way.
And interesting too is, like I said earlier, there's some lines that are in English, and there's not always like a system. Sometimes there are. Some songs it's like the chorus is in French and the verses are in English. But then some songs it's literally just whatever. It seems like whatever just comes out. Like it's just like there's like no judgment. And I will admit this to you, Sam, when y'all came out your first EPs, like your very first EP had some French in it. I would say it was a mixture of French and English, and there was a lot of English. And I was like, oh, this is so cool, first off. But I was a little bit afraid. I was like, what if they just do this EP, and then like the next thing comes out, and it's pretty much just English next thing. But they did the opposite. Like they just added more French each time they came out with something new. It was like, let's put some more French in that. And it was like baby stepping people into the French. You're like, hey, you can handle this much French? Try this much French, guys. You know what I mean? So bravo for that. I'm so delighted to have unfounded fears about that.
Yeah, I want to keep that trend moving in that direction, because it's you have to sort of on est super pragmatique devant la réalité qu'on vit dans un pays bilingue. I mean, okay, well, yeah, principalement anglais. Et so il faut chanter à l'auditoire. Anyway, it's like you said, it's like you gotta bring people in a little bit, offer this thing. And we're realistic about the fact that, at best we speak some French and some English, at this moment, So we're just trying to make a slight reflection of like how we're able to communicate with one another. We know that some things are expressed better in English based on like generations of experience and different idioms, and we know some idioms just flow so much better in French, so we're gonna do the French there. So we're using language as an instrument in our band. It's a timbre. It has its. I'm sure Barry's gonna talk about. It has a timbre, it has a flavor, it has a rhythm. Specifically, the French of Louisiana has different ways that you can articulate things in a way that's perhaps more percussive than it would have been in English. And then sometimes it's more awkward when we do it in English. Anyway, that's a little off topic, but yeah.
I want to make sure.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's definitely a community that creates music together. I mean, we played a show in Quebec. I think it was Quebec. Was it Quebec?
Yeah.
And I can't remember if y'all played before or after.
I think we played before, yeah.
Yep. And then we backed them up,
Oh, that's right. We saw on stage with you.
Yeah. Really like what they were got along. I taught Chris accordion lessons. Produced his first records. He produced our last record. Jimmy teaches at Myrtle Place. Every now and then I do an after-school music program at Myrtle Place, and done some things together. Hope to do more in the future. So it's a community, definitely. Next week. We're all working together next week.
La collaboration quand tu es musicien, c'est c'est quelque chose qui est des fois qui vient qui est corporel, c'est le corps qui parle, le feeling qui parle. Moi j'ai travaillé sur l'arrangement que Barry m'a demandé de créer. Je travaille avec Guillermo Rojas, c'est un étudiant à Yoel, percussion, il vient de Colombie. Et pendant une semaine, on est resté ensemble, on est resté chez moi, on a mangé ensemble et on a travaillé la musique, on a parlé, on a, ok, quel rythme que tu vois, qu'est-ce qui te plaît? Moi je lui ai donné des idées, on s'est donné des idées, on a essayé des choses ensemble. Après on a raturé, on a dit non, ça c'est pas bien. Après on a dit ok, est-ce qu'on peut aller dans cette énergie-là? On avait envie de créer quelque chose qui sonne un petit peu irlandais. Donc dans le choix des instruments, on a choisi des spoons, Irish music, how we can give wink, un clin d'œil.
A nod, we say.
Merci. Un clin d'œil à la musique irlandaise. Ok, on a choisi les spoons. On a choisi aussi le triangle, c'est le petit clin d'œil à la musique de Louisiane. Donc on est allé chercher dans plein d'énergie. Et c'est ce qui est intéressant quand tu es en collaboration avec quelqu'un. Tu peux partager des idées. Et c'est comme ça que va émerger quelque chose de très bien des fois, ou pas bien.
Et c'est comme ça que ça évolue aussi, la musique, avec sa nuance, puis... ouais, c'est un interesting process. Well, I'll take a pause. Anybody else have questions? Before I keep
I
going?
did have a question for Steve. You mentioned earlier that in your experience you've tried a lot of different elements just in the process, and some have worked and some haven't. Is there ever a time where you discarded an idea that you had that just didn't seem to work for your band, and then you've seen a newer band or a younger band take that element and use it in just a slightly different way, or find how it works? Do you have a story about where that's ever happened?
Ask it. Say the end. Give me the
So-
question.
An element that you've attempted, that you've tried, that you discarded, that you thought didn't really work for y'all or didn't seem the right time for, that you've then seen someone else go on to use later, that you've seen another band.
Yes. I'll give you one minute.
We've recorded these songs that are kind of hard to pull off live. And there's one song called Shape That Song that we did on the album Bayou Ruler. And it's just has a lot of different parts. It's like a suite, like they were doing in the 70s, like Paul McCartney would put all these songs together, and it's got those different parts like that. So there's this one part that's a rock and fiddle solo, and we couldn't do the song, it's just too hard to do, wah, percussive stuff. I had to put down an accordion, pick up a fiddle, put the fiddle down, pick up the accordion again. So we just quit doing it. Well, not long ago, I heard the Red State Ramblers, or the Revelers, doing the fiddle part only, which is cool. I thought, I was like, damn, that's a good fiddle song, we should have kept doing it. So that's one example. Maybe others.
I have a question for Ashley. Bonsoir Catin is a mostly female group, right? I mean, you got Danny the Diddy on drums, but otherwise it's all girls, right?
It's in touch with instead of inside.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the history of Cajun music, there aren't a lot of female performers. There might have been, women who knew songs and they sang them at home, a cappella, and things like that. There's lots of excellent recordings that I love, like women's home music and things like that. But there aren't a whole lot of 45s with ladies singing, right? You got Clay LeBrow, and then you have a very large gap for a long time. And Clay LeBrow was only really allowed to because her husband was there with her. It's like, oh, okay, it's sort of not Madame View. You can't put a woman up on stage. It's just, it's improper, right? But she was with her husband, so it was kind of allowed. And there's songs that she wrote, but there's not that many. And so I wonder if that has figured into Bonsoir Catin's decision to make such a strongly original songs album at all, or if it's just that you, for any other reason, you want to make an album of original songs. But I know that I find a lot of Cajun songs, I almost want to change the lyrics. Because I'm thinking about all of them. Do then the dad turns him away, and then he runs away with her, and he gets caught, and then he has to marry her. And he's all, I'm like, dude, you were like, weren't you proposing in the first verse? But poor you're so malchanceux. I'm like, that poor girl, she is malchanceux. Okay, you're some weird kind of one, but no, I don't know, on hand aside, like, so I know a lot of Cajun music, the traditional stuff is very much from a male perspective.
Yeah.
Was that a factor at all for you?
No, I don't think that's ever anything that we really focus on. I think we just write what we feel like writing, and it comes out the way it does. I don't think we ever sat around and said, hey, let's write these women's songs, you know? Even one of the songs in our record, I specifically wrote it from a guy's point of view because Christy and I were laughing. I said, we need like one of those Lomax tunes, you know, pretty fluid melody, very simple, you know, and a simple story. And I specifically wrote, I was like, God's point of view. So, and I modeled it after all those older tunes had, you know, that standard story. I know Christy had written a thesis once about, she broke down all of the categories in Cajun music songs, and it's such a great book. And it's so true. You know, all the songs were based on, you know, really basic principles, and they were good. They were good principles. Everyone can relate to them. Everyone knows.
Do you remember those principles right now, off the top of your head? Or no?
It was like, what was it? Love lost, you know, being poor, you know, basic things like that that everyone can relate to, and I think that's why everybody liked the song so much, because more people know about being sad and poor than being rich and literally happy. But no, to answer your question, I don't think we set out to make any type of statement or anything like that.
Just curious.
Post-feminist. That's what they are. They don't need to make a statement, they're already there.
Fourth wave.
I guess what are y'all's next projects? As I know we're kind of nearing the end of this discussion, so what's on the horizon for tout le monde?
Ok, je suis à gauche de mon perspective. Ok, oui, on travaille sur un nouvel album qui va sortir peut-être dans 2019. Working on a new album, it's going to come out in 2019. On est super pompé pour ça. On est signé avec Verve Records, the old jazz label, who have just broken away and formed sort of a pop music wing of their label. So doing that, very nervous about that. But we look forward to being on tour in Europe en février. On va être en Europe.
I mean, if there's someone who wants to go, or we can just go down the line.
Or just kind of going with the flow, you know? Making records. Got a studio, it's kind of what I do. Playing a lot of different bands. Probably some of those bands will make albums at some point, but I don't have any definite dates of anything coming out yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bonsoir Catin just finished up a baby boom, so we are. Yeah, we just had a whole slew of babies. So we're getting that straight, and fixed all that, and then, like I said, we're just gonna go with the flow, and whatever comes our way. I know everybody's writing right now, so we shall see.
Culture must be people too. We gotta keep producing, right? Passion.
We're playing a little festival in town tomorrow night. Yeah, right there. And
Our 30th
December,
anniversary too. So.
in December, we're gonna have a 30th anniversary concert, live recording, so we're writing songs for that.
And same thing for us. We have one performance Sunday at 12 o'clock at the Seine Atelier with Les Étoiles de Louisiane in French, Cajun French, Creole. And also we are creating a Christmas tour and Louisiana to be able to show everybody what is possible with kids. The musical, singing French, we're proud to represent Louisiana, and the last project is to invite the choir from Newfoundland to perform with us at the Festival International. This is a huge project.
Guess I'll throw it out there for questions again. I think we have maybe 10 minutes left. Anyone have any questions?
I have one question. Going back to Sam's comment about yogis and sort of the sacred aspect of sometimes what seems to be this music, and it made me think, just continuing that metaphor, does that mean you guys have a different role? So if you guys are performing a music that is somewhat akin to Latin or Sanskrit in its kind of ritual function, what does that make you guys? Does it make you priests of or bards maybe of the sort? Do you see that as kind of elevating your role as beyond just being kind of a mere, singer of songs? Is there something higher?
No, if we were to continue the religious language, I would just say that we're practitioners of it, that we evoke that language and tap into that wavelength, if you will. Again, at the risk of sounding hugely sanctimonious and pretentious, this is just what comes to mind at this moment in my life. But no, I'd say as opposed to guru, teacher, rabbi, whatever, it's more just like that we're just one of the congregation.
Steve, you agree with that? Are you the high priest?
Are you maybe like the choir of the congregation? Like you're not in the awe, you're like, you practice the songs during the week on Thursday night to make sure that
All right. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, cool.
I love a good extended metaphor.
Yeah.
De voir ça comme être un passeur. Je crois que tu dis ça, être un passeur. On est à un moment de notre vie où on doit donner, on doit offrir quelque chose pour les nouvelles générations et puis les personnes qui sont comme nous. Il faut prendre ce rôle-là avec fierté et donner quelque chose de bien. Voilà. Parce que si tu fais quelque chose de bien, tu vas récolter quelque chose de bien. Voilà, c'est comme ça qu'on pense.
I'd like to add something, just about the religious thing. Let's not go religious. Let's go art magic. Because poetry, which is like lyrics, content, essentially oral poetry. Oral poetry in its earliest forms, Homer, all the Greeks and the Romans and earliest, the Nibelungen Lied, the Gilgamesh, all of those oral poems from way thousands of years ago were what was effective about them was that they were in memorable language. They weren't written down, they were performed orally. And the language of oral poetry worked on a societal level to move people. It was like it was magic. It made you feel things. It was carefully crafted and constructed to produce that visceral, emotional experience. And I think that music lyrics, when they really work, still do the same thing. They still, it's magic language. It's language that maybe that's what got confused, maybe, or fused, not confused, fused with religion. But I think lyrics still do the same thing. Roger's going to talk about it a little bit.
I'm going to talk about it right now.
Oh.
At the risk of saying something I shouldn't, let me preface this by saying I've worked as an organist in a Catholic school for over 30 years, and I'm not Catholic. I think that religion has become the politics of spirituality. When I say that, I mean that what is spiritual that we have inside our hearts, that's what I think Barry is talking about, which works in the oral tradition in the community. Organizing it in one church or another is wonderful for many, many people, but don't lose sight of the original feeling. That's what binds us together, and I think in a community like this one, in a folk community, or any kind of community, really, that's what we need to keep in mind, not the administrative organization of it and the ritual of it that has been so developed that sometimes we lose sight of it. I'm sorry if I'm stumbling over my words, but I hope some of that will be true.
Any questions? Or comments? Doesn't have to be a question.
I'm just going to say, I wish I was a middle school music student for your passion, and I want to thank Ashley and Chris's parents for putting you in immersions. I mean, I came here maybe for the first time 8 years ago or something to come to the festival, and it just, in a country that's so homogenous, to come down here and see the culture preserved, I mean, it's just really special. Got my heart.
I will say that downstairs is the exhibit that Codeville has for their 50th anniversary as part of an agreement with Festival. So I hope you'll visit it. I also have a happy announcement to make that we found out this morning. In the exhibit downstairs, you'll see a map in the second room, the room kind of on this side of the building. And it's a map of the OIF, the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. It's sort of like the UN, but for French-speaking countries, right? It's like an international assembly of countries. Most of them are French-speaking countries. There are a handful of them that are not necessarily traditionally French-speaking, but they have a great affinity for French culture and Francophone culture. And it's been around since 1970, and we've been to a number of its summits as just sort of a special guest invited. We went to Vietnam in the late 90s. We've been to Romania when it happened in Romania once. And we come with a very small delegation sometimes. But earlier this year, we put in our application for real to be an observateur, a membre observateur, which is sort of about as far as we can go being only a state. So most of these are sovereign nations. And the other regions, like in Canada, New Brunswick and Quebec are members themselves, but they can be at a different level because Canada is also a member. The United States is not a member, and to make the United States a member would be very complicated, right? That would be a lot of, that's way, if we ever do that, it would be way in the future. But, so we made our application to be a membre observateur, an observer, not a member, and they just voted in Armenia this afternoon in Armenia, which is this morning, for us, and we're in. We're in the club. The next summit in 2020, it'll be in Tunisia. And
Quiet.
huh? Talk to the governor about that. I don't know. So if you get a chance to go downstairs and look at the exhibit, I'm going to have to make a little blurb to attach to that building because it just says it's going to be voted on in this fall, but I'm going to make a little blurb with an update for everybody. But we're really excited about that. That was a lot of work of a lot of different people went into that. There's a very thick dossier that many people spend a lot of hours on. So about that. I feel like I don't have any. I feel like I exhausted most of my questions. I sort of pummeled y'all. If anyone else has any questions before we wrap up. I always give it a second because sometimes
This was wonderful.
Yay! And I really want to thank everyone on the panel for sharing your experiences and your points of view. And I was really happy to have all the people I wanted. So I was like, whoa, they all said yes. So,
Merci de nous avoir.
The preceding program was made possible in part with production assistance provided by AOC Community Media.